The CNN News on the 1st of November 2018 reported how a synagogue shooting suspect was taken care of by a Jewish hospital staff, even as he spewed hate. Mr. Bowers was charged with killing 11 people at a Pittsburgh synagogue. He was admitted in Allegheny General Hospital. Dr. Jeffrey Cohen, the administrator of the hospital, checked on Bowers like he might any other patient. When Bowers arrived at the hospital to be treated for multiple gunshot wounds, he was still screaming that he wanted to kill all Jews. And the first 3 people who are taking care of him are Jewish. Cohen acknowledged that some on his staff had conflicting emotions about Bowers, but said ultimately Allegheny General Hospital has one mission: to take care of sick people, regardless of who they are or their circumstances. There was a statement by Jeff Cohen in USA Today. Speaking of the accused, he said, "He is some mother's son." It is this kind of compassion that needs to spread far and wide into the world today. We are not going to solve the problems of the world with an eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth policy. The first reading from the first book of Samuel and the gospel of the day invite us to treat our enemies with love. Saul sought to kill David, and now David had the possibility of killing his enemy. Still, David says, "Do not kill him, for who can lift his hand against the Lord's anointed and be without guilt? The Lord forbid that I should raise my hand against the Lord's anointed." And Jesus in the gospel teaches, "Love your enemies and do good to those who hate you." Love your enemies and do good to them, and lend without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High. For He is kind towards the ungrateful and the wicked. We may be tempted to think that this is an impossible teaching. But reports like the one we saw earlier show that it is possible for us human beings to treat even our enemies with love and compassion. Moreover, the sacred scripture will tell us that loving and doing good to the enemy is the only way to destroy the enemy, or better, destroy the enmity. Let us survey a few verses from the sacred scripture that invite us to love and to be merciful to our enemies. In the Sermon on the Mount, in Matthew chapter 5, verse 44, we read, "Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." St. Paul, in the letter to the Romans, tells us, "If your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him to drink. By doing this, you will heap burning coals upon his head." Here in Romans 12, verse 20, Paul in fact is quoting from the book of Proverbs, chapter 25, verses 21 to 22. The author of the book of Proverbs says, "If your enemy is hungry, give him something to eat. If thirsty, something to drink. Thus you pile up red-hot coals on his head, and the Lord will reward you." Paul, in the following verse, will urge us, "Do not let evil defeat you, but conquer evil with good." And in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 15, Paul teaches us, "See that no one repays evil for evil, but try to do good, whether among yourselves or towards others. If you see your enemy's ox or donkey going astray, take it back to him. When you see the donkey of a man who hates you falling under its load, do not pass by, but help him to raise it up." That's what we read in Exodus chapter 23 verses 4 to 5 and Deuteronomy 22 1 to 4. The story of Shimei cursing and throwing stones at David and his officers is recounted in the second book of Samuel, chapter 16, verse 5 to 14. Abishai is provoked and wanted to cut off the head of Shimei, but David calms him down, saying, "Leave him alone, and let him curse me if the Lord has ordered him to do so. Perhaps the Lord will look on my affliction and turn to good the curses heaped on me today." When we are tempted to think that it is difficult to forgive and love our enemies, and when such acts are perceived and interpreted as weakness, may the examples of Jesus and Stephen, the proto-martyr, spare us all, and may we be able to pray for our enemies like them. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Lord, do not hold this sin against them. As Jesus said, "By this they will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." Yes, the world will know that we are truly disciples of the Lord when we are able to love one another, when we are able to love and pray for our enemies.